In this video, we are going to use GSAP, which stands for GreenSock Animation Platform, to perform animations in Python Django projects. So what you see over here is a very simple list view with Tailwind CSS on the front end. Let me refresh the page so we can see exactly what we are going to build. So as you probably noticed, these cards were animated. They appeared one after another in a pretty nice way. And then if we go to the details, we also see an animation over here. We start with the title and then we go to the description. This is some kind of a fade-in effect, you can say. And both of those animations we are going to create in this tutorial. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we get started, I just want to mention that you can use GSAP not only with Django, and actually using it with Django is a pretty rare case, and that's why I decided to make a video about it. Basically, wherever you use JavaScript, you can try to utilize GreenSock Animation Platform to build amazing animations in a very simple way. So as an example, I will show you my website. It's not ready yet, and I used only very simple animations over here. So the first animation that I will show you is for the logo. So in order to see it, we need to hover on the logo, and we have this bouncing and spinning effect. The other one is going to be for the navigation and for the text, as well as for the buttons. To see it, we need to reload the page. Okay. And then we have animations for sections. Whenever we enter a particular section, we should see the contents of the section appear. Okay, so this is the About section. Here we have the Education section. And by the way, if you are interested in learning Django with Tailwind CSS, check out my newest course. You can create amazing looking Django projects with the use of Tailwind and GSAP, for example. But here we are not only learning about building beautiful interfaces with Django and Tailwind CSS, we are also learning some practical stuff like, for example, building reusable components and creating automation scripts. Then if we scroll down, we have the offer section, the blog section, which I will hopefully add very soon, and the contact section. All right, as the next step, let's take a look at what have I done so far. So I created a brand new Django project, and currently I'm inside of the main project directory in the settings py file. Over here, let's scroll down to the installed apps list. As you can see, I've created a post application with the use of Python manage py start app comment. I also added Django Tailwind CSS, and here are the installation requirements related to this package. So we have Tailwind, we have Django browser reload, and the theme application, which was added during the installation process. We also have some installation configuration over here, but we don't want to dive deep into it because Tailwind CSS isn't mandatory for this tutorial. You can use any other CSS framework, or even you don't have to use a CSS framework, okay? So it's all up to you. All right, as the next step, let's move to the post application and let's take a look at the views py file. Over here, I have two class views, one for listing the posts and the other one for taking a look into the post details. So these views are related to the main HTML template for the post list. And for the detail view, we have a detail HTML file attached. So now if we take a look at those main and detail HTML files, we can notice they inherit from base HTML. Base HTML was added when we were installing Django Tailwind, and we have set the theme application for Tailwind CSS. So this is the base HTML. It has been slightly modified by me, so I've added this comment. So here we will place our GSAP CDN so that we can actually perform animations with the use of GreenSock Animation Platform, and we have blog scripts as well as blog content over here. So if we take a look again at those HTML files, we can notice that we already attached JavaScript files to those templates. So we have the main.js for the main HTML and the detail.js for the detail HTML. Both of those JavaScript files are currently empty. In the URL.py file of the core application, we have included the URL patterns of our post application. And yeah, we already talked about the base HTML. Here in the models.py of the post application, we have defined a post class with 3 fields: title, body, and created. So I also created already a super user so that I can log into the Django administration, which I already did, and I've created 4 post objects. Okay, so they look exactly the same. The difference is with the number. Okay, so we have posts from 1 to 4. Now let's grab the CDN from CDN.js. I'm going to copy script tag, and then I'm going to head over to the base HTML, and below the GSAP CDN comment, I'm going to place this script. I'm going to save the base HTML, and then I'm going to return to main HTML, and we are going to now work on the blog content. So first of all, I'm going to write an if check, if object list. So we are checking if we have objects in our database. Else, we are going to write no posts in the DB. But if there are any posts in our database, we are going to loop through them and display them in a card. So for obj in object list, we are going to create a card, and I'm going to do it with the use of Tailwind CSS. So I'm going to write a div class, and here I'm going to place bgslate 800, and I'm going to make this card rounded to large, and I'm going to add a padding of 6 and margin on the y-axis of 3. And then we will need to specify an ID so that we can grab these card elements in our JavaScript file. So I'm going to place over here card, and then I'm going to input for loop counter. Okay, so the first object will be 1, the second will be 2, the third will be 3, and the fourth will be 4. We will see how this looks like very soon when we move to the main.js file. Okay, so this is the div, this is the parent div, you can say. So let's close it over here. And inside of it, we need to display the title as well as the description. And of course, we should also remember about the button, which will take us to the detail page. So let's start with the title. So I will have a div class of text Excel, and I'm going to set the font as semi-bold, and I'm going to add a margin bottom of 2. Here I'm going to display the obj title. All right, below I'm going to place div class, and here I'm just going to write maybe text gray 500, and I'm going to add a margin bottom of 4. And here I'm just going to place the obj description. All right, and then we will have an href. For now, I'm going to leave it empty. Now I'm going to set some classes starting from the background. So I'm going to write bgblue 500. I'm going to set the text, for example, to maybe blue 50. What else? Let's say we want to have padding X of 4 and padding Y of 2. Let's make this button rounded. And let's, on hover, change the background to BG Blue 600, for instance. Okay. Let's set the transition duration to 300 milliseconds, and let's also add is in out. All right. Let's close this and let's place in details. Perfect. Let's save this right now and let's see what is the result. Okay, so we have test post 2, test post 3, test post 4. We don't see the description. So, it's not obj description, it's actually obj body, okay? So I used a shorter name. Let's save this. And now we also see the description. So I'm going to make this even more lighter. And maybe 400 will be the value that I'm looking for. Yes, this looks pretty nice if you ask me. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and now let's try to grab our cards by the ID, which is dynamic, inside of main.js. So I'm going to create a variable cards is equal to document and then query selector all. And over here, I'm going to open single quotes and then the square brackets. Then inside of the square brackets, I'm going to write ID dash is equal to, and then we are going to write card slash. So here we are grabbing all the cards that start with card, and here I should place quotation marks. Okay, so once again, here we are grabbing all the elements that start with card slash, okay? So let's see if this actually works. I'm going to write console log, and let's console log the cards. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to inspect, right-click inspect, console. So the Django browser reload didn't work, I think. I'm going to refresh the page manually. And we don't see anything. Let's try it with console log hello world. I'm going to clear the cache, Command Shift R, and there we go. Okay, so over here, let's refresh the page again. We have the results, however, they are displayed as a node list. So we would like to transform this into the array. So we can do this with the use of spread operator. I'm going to save this, reload the page, and now we have an array of elements. So now we are ready to create our first animations. And before we do that, let's get familiar with GSAP. GSAP from, GSAP to, and GSAP from to. So GSAP from animates from a given state with the use of some properties defined as objects. So we can pass in an object and determine how do we want to animate from this starting state to the end state, which is over here. So this is our end state. To this state, we want to animate. In terms of GSAP2, this is exactly the opposite. So we determine an end state over here, okay? And to this end state, we want to animate. And our starting state is the one that we see over here. And from 2, we determine the starting state and the end state. So we, over here in GSAP, in JavaScript, determine the starting state and determine or define the end state. Okay, so let's get started with this. First of all, let's pass in the element that we want to animate. And here we have multiple elements stored in an array. So we are passing cards, and then we will have this configuration object where we will start with the opacity set to 0. Then we will say that we want to have Y50, and let's say that the duration of the animation should be 1, and ease we will set to power 3 out. Okay, so let's start with this and let's see what do we get. All right, so as you can see, we are now animating everything. If we would increase Y to 500, we would have such an effect. If it would be minus 500, it would go from the top, okay? So let's bring it back to 50, and let's maybe add a delay of 2 seconds. Okay, so this is also something you can do. Maybe let's give it a delay of 1 second. And there we go. But I think the best use case for such animation would be adding animations one after another with a small delay. And if we are dealing with multiple elements, we can use the stagger property. And here we can define a delay between elements. Let's see how this will work. Very nice. I'm going to close this and I'm going to press the details button. And yeah, this doesn't take us to the detail page because we didn't define the href over here, and I also didn't set the getAbsolute method. So let me place it very quickly. GetAbsolute URL method. And here I'm going to set posts detail, and we already have the primary key in the path. Okay, so this should work. I'm going to save this and I'm going to head over to main HTML, and I'm going to place obj get absolute URL. Let's save this. Okay, we see this animation. Let's go to the details, and this time it works. So we now need to work on the detail page. Over here, let's create the main div with some classes: bg slate 700 rounded lg, padding of 6 and margin top of 3. Let's close off this div. Inside, let's place a div with a class of text, maybe 3XL, and font. Let's make it semi-bold. And yeah, for now, let's leave it as it is. Here we will have the object title. I'm going to copy this, paste it below. Here, let's make maybe text SM, and we will have the object body. Okay. And we also need to provide some IDs so we can grab those elements in JavaScript. So here I'm going to place in ID title and ID body. All right, I'm going to save this, and now in the details.js, I'm going to grab those elements. So we will have a title div, and this is going to be document get element by ID title. Let me copy this and paste it. Here we will have the body div, and we will grab it by the body ID. All right, so now we will be dealing with animating individual elements. So let's try this with GSAP 2. So let's do this first for the title div. So I'm going to go back to detail HTML, and I'm going to set the opacity to 0 for the title and for the body. And then I want to animate to opacity 1, okay? Let's say that the duration should be 2, and let's use the same ease. Okay. I'm going to save this. And we don't see anything right now. Let me right-click inspect. Okay, I had to clear the cache, so Command-Shift-R, and we see right now the title. We don't see the body because the opacity is set to 0. Okay, perfect. So we can do the same thing for the body. So let's do this. We will have the body div, and let's say that the duration will be 4 seconds, and let's save this, and we have such an effect. It doesn't look really nice, so I'm going to add a delay to the body. So let's place delay. And since this is an individual element and this is an individual element, we can't place stagger. The stagger property is only for multiple elements, like over here. So that's why I'm going to place over here delay to get a similar effect as we did on the main page. So let's save this and let's see how this will look like. Okay, looks pretty good. And we could play around with this. We can try to use also GSAP from to, but this is something that you can do on your own to get the feeling on how you can animate stuff with GSAP in Django projects. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like and comment, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.